What's up, buddy?
Oh, the huge.
This is the Jared's Stern equivalent of waiting for Godot.
That's right.
Waiting for other Jared. The Jared Stern.
Yeah, it's
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. I
Look
can't
at how
believe.
excited Penny is. I mean, she's here for it. She pulled up her chair. She's got
That's
the whole
right.
dog bed there for it.
I can't believe it's only been 21 episodes. This was
Really?
supposed to be the big pie in the sky thing that we wanted to get done, and now here we are.
I got to tell you,
So
the quality of your camera is fantastic, by the way. Really good.
thank you.
Hold on one second.
Right.
I need to do a slight adjustment to mine because I'm very yellow.
That looks like
Am I
okay.
white? I got a new monitor, and I feel like the color aspect is a little bit off.
Are you white? No, you are presenting as
I realize that question might have been slightly redundant.
no. What I'm saying is you look like a minion.
Am I super yellow?
Yeah.
I thought so, right?
Yeah, you have just a very Simpsonic complexion right now.
Why is this happening? Can I?
Because it's the most important podcast we've done.
Let's see if I.
I mean, because in your current, the way you're currently presenting, when he comes on, he's going to think it's a Make-A-Wish. I hope he shows up. I hope he shows up on time.
Regardless, by the way, of whether or not he shows up or not, congratulations.
Yeah. same to
Episode
you.
21. 21 of these. guys.
21? Yeah. I mean, we were shocked when we made it to 3. This is 7 times that.
That is math.
Yeah.
And I've heard of math, and that is definitely math. 3 minutes. Are you? I'm wondering if it's going to happen too. I'm sitting
Yeah.
here. Could go either way here. All right. It is officially 6 o'clock right now, and the clock is started.
Okay.
Oh
Is he
my!
here?
He's here.
Oh my goodness.
Here we go.
Well, everybody, our guest needs no introduction
Big round
because
of
his
applause.
name,
Punctual as well.
yeah, his name is Jared Stern. He's the Jared Stern we've all hoped we could be and hoped that we could finally meet. Holy
Oh my
crap.
God! This is incredible.
Jared Stern is connecting. Jared Stern is here. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I'm Jared Stern. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Jared Stern.
I'm Jared Stern.
I'm also Jared Stern.
No, I'm Jared Stern. The best Jared Stern. And you're listening to Between Two Sterns.
We've been in the chat for about 15 minutes prior to you doing our own like waiting for Godot, where we weren't entirely sure if you were going to show up or not, and so it was very tense leading up into this. But finally, the dream has occurred, which is there's a Zoom call with 3 Jared Sterns labeled on all 3 of them.
People might say we should dream bigger, but this has been a dream for us to have 3 Jared Sterns in a Zoom call.
Before we begin, thank you so much for doing this. I can't imagine how absurd this might have been when the guy reached out to you in the first place.
It was fantastic.
Really?
Well, yeah, I just thought it was a great thing. I was like, this is going to be a good story.
If nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Do you guys, by the way, do you like your name? Do you like the name Jared Stern?
Yeah.
No,
You don't?
I don't. I feel like I don't say the name well. And I know that we had talked about whether or not to bring this up, but I feel like growing up in my generation, I was associated with one of 2 people, which was either Howard Stern or Jared the Subway Sandwich guy.
I don't like it. I don't like my name.
You don't
the
like your
Subway
name?
guy. No, I wish I liked it, but there's the Subway guy. There's the, I won't get political, but there's a political Jared. And then there's
There
the
is.
jewelry store.
Yeah.
He went to Jared jewelry store, which I don't love, but I like Howard Stern. So
Yeah, I like Howard Stern too. So we were trying to figure out, because you don't do a lot of social media, you're not really on anything. Chronologically, where do you fall? Because Jared and I are 7 years and 8 days apart exactly age-wise. So I'm 38. Jared's 45.
Coming up on 46, yeah.
46. Where are you kind of in the...
I was told there'd be no math. No, I'm in between the 2 of you. I think I'm a little closer to Jared than Jared.
Okay.
And I'm about to turn 44.
By the way, we've done 21 of these at this point, and one thing that's often difficult when guests come on is distinguishing between the two of us when they're talking to us. And so, because Jared, the other Jared, is in DC and I'm in Southern California, we had adopted the phrase Jared Eastern and Western. And for ease of this podcast, I've decided to label you Bestern because you are by far the most successful of the three of us.
That is too kind of you. I don't think I'm the best, but
well, we still haven't interviewed the Jared Paul Stern from Maxim magazine, so we'll find out about that guy.
I was going to bring that up because here's another little detail about me. My name is in fact Jared Paul Stern.
Shut up!
No kidding.
Yes. So growing up, I grew up on Long Island, and I would read. He also wrote for Page Six, the gossip column in the New York Post.
That's where I found out about him.
Yeah, and I would read that all the time, and he wore a fedora, like it was, 30s for some reason, and he had my exact name, and it was very strange. It's one thing for you guys to have the same first and last name that I do now, but he even had my middle name. And
wow,
insane!
It was always very.
You guys should start a podcast.
Have you gotten into the meaning of our name, like the Hebrew meaning?
Well, I used to do a joke about this on stage where I believe Stern is German for star.
Yeah.
And then I said that Jared was Hebrew for fat Jew who lost a lot of weight eating Subway sandwiches. But then that got really twisted very fast. And then I stopped associating myself with him on stage.
Yeah.
But Jared one who rules, I believe? Something like that. Little
I
kid.
probably have it completely wrong. I think it is descended.
Yeah.
So like we're descended from the stars. We've come from the stars.
Wow.
So aliens, I guess.
Sure.
The only thing I knew about the name Jared was there was a biblical derivation because Jared was the grandfather of Methuselah, who is famously very, very, very old.
Old, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you got in the screenwriting game.
And I guess within that, one thing that we've been curious about is, have you always been a writer? Were you ever a performer as well?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So I graduated from college, and when I was in college, I interned in advertising because I thought, I need a real job. You can't just become a screenwriter or something like that. And I had this great copywriter who I interned for who said, wait a minute, this is your fallback job? The thing that you're interning for, this is your fallback job, right? And I was like, I guess, but I thought I need to have this first, so I could get an apartment and I could start my life. And he was like, no, this is your fallback job. He was like, just go do it. And so it was really good advice. And so I just moved out to LA and, faxed my resume places. You already know how old I am. And yeah, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I liked comedy and I wanted to get paid to be funny in some way. So I got an assistant job that had nothing to do with, it was in show business, but it was just answering phones for an executive who made like History Channel shows.
Sure.
And at the same time, I started writing scripts. And I tried doing stand-up and wrote scripts, and I just figured if I got a break, that's what I would do. And if none of that worked out, I was like, then I'll be a producer named Jared Stern or an agent. I just wanted to be around it, and I wasn't sure, I just would follow whatever worked out. And my first break was actually more in performing. I had this idea for a web series before the web was fast enough for there to be web series, but it was about stand-up comedy. It was like an interactive thing that it didn't work out, but the company said, we want to do a search for the funniest college student. And so I got paid to travel around the country for like 6 months, searching for the funniest college student. And it was called the Dot Comic, I think.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, that's just one of my experiences. And so I quickly learned I want to be a writer. And so I started writing more samples and got my first break as an assistant to a writer named Dick Levin, who was the showrunner of Mad About You.
Oh, cool.
And he's a wonderful guy. He was like a mentor to me, and I'm still friends with years later. And so learned a lot from him. Like, he wrote every single day, even though he didn't have to. He getting paid tons of money for the deal. And he still wrote every single day. So I just kept writing and like, oh, that's what you have to do? That sucks. That's hard. But I did it and got better. And so that now I'm not as terrible. And so, yeah, that was how I got started.
Much like this Jared Stern off to my left, when I discovered he existed, I got a call at one point being like, it was essentially my mom or some friend of hers. I don't know. I had moved out to LA when I was like 23 years old. And so I was out here for a while and then I moved back and somebody was like, is Jared associated with the movie Wreck-It Ralph at all? And we go, why? She's like, because it's written by Jared Stern. And I told my mom, I was like, tell everybody I wrote the movie Wreck-It Ralph. And like, tell them all it's me. But one thing that I will say, and I probably speak for the other Jared as well, I love your credits. I really do. Like I liked your movies before I knew that you had written them. One thing in particular, and I did a little bit of research, Jared, without telling you last night. One thing on your IMDb page, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about this, is you have something coming out soon where it's yourself. It's Jared and Robert, a couple of characters. So, Jared, can you tell me a little bit about this credit that's on your IMDb page?
No.
Yeah. Hang on. I'll field this one. Okay. I'm going to have to go ahead and apologize on IMDb's behalf, because somehow, yeah, that's a comedy special that's in production for a very crappy album that myself and an associate. It's not crappy because the comedy's bad. It's crappy because it's very poorly produced. And like when we recorded the album, the people who were putting it together didn't know their asses from a hole in the ground, and it was raining that day, and it was the day that Infinity War came out. No one came to the show. It was like there were like 25 people in a 600 seat hall, and it sounded every bit of it. Anyway, but it was this album ended up being recorded by Comedy Dynamics, who actually do reputable comedy specials and comedy albums for people you've actually heard of. So this album's been played on Sirius XM, and I later found out they wanted to do a video comedy special of it, and that too was poorly produced. And but they're still planning on putting it out, and that is yes, Jared Stern and Robert Mack, a couple of characters. One of the worst titles I could ever think of, but we didn't have any input in the titling of it at all. Yeah.
So I have a bunch of terrible credits on my IMDb page of things that I actually did write and are garbage. So if you're welcome to put any of those, we can trade. If you want like a Mr. Popper's Penguins or
I'll take a couple. I'll take Popper's.
It's a very sweet, adorable movie. I have nothing against it.
We're just sharing them around. So I have noticed that you've kind of pivoted in your credits from, because I know you did The Watch, I know you wrote The Internship, but you seem to be mainly kind of moving in this animated place with the last couple of movies, with like Wreck-It Ralph, Lego Batman movie. You've got the DC Super Pets coming up. Was this a conscious choice to move into more animated writing, or was it?
No, not really. My first, I started off writing samples for when I worked for Vic, figured, okay, I can break into live action sitcoms. And I wrote samples for shows like to get on staff like that. And it just never worked out. Mm-hmm. And then the first job that I got happened to be in animation. And then from that, I got a job at Disney that was supposed to be for a week that turned into like 4 or 5 years. So
oh, wow.
From age like, I don't know what it was, like 25 to 30, it was like I got paid to go to grad school. And it was, in screenwriter, you're often wondering like, okay, what's my next job? And the next one after that, the next one after that. And this was like the old Hollywood studio system where I had a job and I went in and they could put me on whatever movie they wanted. And so it was very secure and I learned a ton and there were wonderful filmmakers. And so during that time, I worked on the movie that became Wreck-It Ralph. I worked on a very early version of it called Joe Jump. And I worked on Princess and the Frog. I worked on an early version of Toy Story 3 that was nothing like the actual one of those. But anyway, so that was my big break, was in animation. And then when I left there, I had written a live action spec script. And it was about a guy who goes back in time and becomes his own high school guidance counselor to try to stop
nice
for making all the same mistakes that he did. And then that led to, it's just kind of random. That just led to more jobs like that. So I kind of, the people that read that at 20th Century Fox liked it. And they were like, hey, we've got this Penguin movie. Why don't you help us out in that one? And the guy had an idea about a neighborhood watch. And so I worked on that movie. And so I kind of did that for a few years. And it was great. I learned a ton about how to make then live action stuff. And then just, I guess in the last few years, I've found myself in a place where no one's ever in control in Hollywood. You're always, there's someone else much more powerful and in control. The best Jared Stern, and who doesn't even have a name. And so but still, I kind of had a little bit more of like, okay, what do I really want to do? And the truth is, I like both. So yes, most of the things I've been doing lately are more family. I did a Green Eggs and Ham show and the Super Pets movie that I'm directing now, which are family animated things. And then I also wrote and directed a live action movie for Netflix that's super tiny called Happy Anniversary. Okay. It's just like a romantic comedy autobiographical thing that's much more R-rated, and I like doing that too. So Yeah, I kind of would love to do both.
So between the Lego Batman movie, which by the way I loved, I thought the Lego Batman movie was fantastic, and the DC Super Pets, are you a comic book guy? Like, are you one of us, or are you just kind of like moonlighting in this space?
So growing up, I was huge into comics,
Okay.
and I just was, I had to move some stuff, and I was digging through my old comics and loving it and geeking out, and wondering if anything were worth anything, and they're not. But I was like, yeah, I was super into X-Men and like the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the black and white ones, and yeah, so I love comic books. And then I kind of, I didn't stick with it. I'm not like a super comic book reader still, but I also always loved comic book movies. From the original Donner Superman is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And then you're closer to my age, but Eastern, but the Tim Burton Batman was a huge.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we've talked about this. That's our Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is our live action Batman. Kevin Conroy is always going to be the voice of Batman for us, which is everything you think of him. Yeah.
And so now in the last few years, because of Lego Batman and now DC Super Pets, I've gotten like really immersed and back into comics, and on the DC side too, which has been super fun. And I have like good gatekeepers. Like when I started working at DC for the first time, they took me into, there's like a vault at DC, which is the most amazing thing. It's like, have you ever seen like the Criterion collection thing where there's people that go into this closet and like the filmmakers get to pick like their favorite. So it's kind of like that, but with comic books. And so you just go through and it's a weird thing too, because like you want to take a bunch of stuff, but you have to like, I don't want to be the guy who took too much stuff, or I don't want to be the guy who took like that giant one. But I have a friend who I was with, I won't out him, but he didn't care. He was just like, I'm taking everything. I'm taking the big giant compendium. Like, let them stop me.
Yeah, right.
Like, he had like 2 backpacks. So yeah, I've gotten super into comics and it's been fun. I'm lucky that they let me play in it. But there's still people who work on the movie, like our editor is like a hardcore DC fan. He loves the Flat.
Yeah.
And it's good to have someone who's like that working on a movie like this. And then it's good to have someone who's less so, because you want everyone to love the movie, the people who are super geeks and the people who kind of know it a little bit. And I'm glad you like Lego Batman. And I will just say that a lot of people worked on that movie. I can only take a tiny bit of.
Well, you're the only one of them that's right here in front of us. So, you know, take those compliments and disperse them among the entire IMDb credits list. But yeah, it was.
I'm the one with the best name for sure.
That's
exactly.
Right. Are you allowed to talk about DC Super Pets? I don't want to ask you questions if it's still in that because I know how these superhero movies are about kind of their secrets and whatnot.
Yes, I think I could talk about the stuff that's been, you know, or I'm trying to make sure I don't say something I'm not supposed to. But yeah, but it just recently got announced that Dwayne Johnson is playing
very cool,
which is fun. And yeah, go ahead.
Getting you on this show was so easy. And by the way, we don't know whether to thank you or be mad at you for being so easy. We met each other for the first time 3 weeks ago. One of the very kind of the anecdotes about the podcast is Jared and I have been anecdotally aware of each other for 15 years. But we had only had 2 phone conversations before we decided to do this podcast because it was during the pandemic. We needed something to do. So the podcast is an evolution of us getting to know each other. Once we met each other, we set a goal. We were like, okay, well, we need something for people to keep listening to this. Our white whale is getting the Jared Stern, the writer Jared Stern. And in the middle of the following week's podcast, we're in the middle of talking and Jared goes, holy shit, he's in. And I'm like, what? Like, I have a friend who's a friend on Facebook. I was like, look, both of our parents have told us for years that all we need to do is apply ourselves and we can be successful. It can't happen this soon. We have nowhere to go. So now at this point, our goal is to get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to change his name to Dwayne "The Jared Stern" Johnson and come on the pod. We'll pay the legal fees. We don't want to put that on.
That seems like a good, I'm sorry that I ruined it so quickly, but like, it needs to be one of those things where you think we figured it out, like on Mayor of Easttown, like we think we know that everything's all solved, and wait, there's more mysteries here. So there's got to be something.
I was kind of hoping that Seth Rogen in prosthetics would show up on camera. And then the big twist would be that wasn't Jared Stern. That was a Jared Stern imposter. And now we need to figure out how to find the real Jared Stern.
The Rock, or Dwayne Johnson, also people call him DJ, but I don't ever feel like I can call him that. Right. Like, I don't think sometimes celebrities have like nicknames that are like their celebrity nickname, and I'm like, I can't call you that thing. I need to call you fully Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Like Sly, like Sylvester Stallone goes by Sly.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
So when he's recording his lines, you're like just outside the booth while this is happening, or?
Normally that would be how you do it. And on Lego Batman, I was there when Will Arnett or Zach Galifianakis was there for a bunch of records that way. And you're sitting on the other side of a big glass wall talking through like a little remote control speaker. Or sometimes you're on a soundstage and you get to be in there with them and just kind of that way you can throw out ideas and riff on them. But because Super Pets took place like you guys during the pandemic meeting over Zoom, same thing. We didn't start recording until after the pandemic. So I met DJ once in person to pitch him the movie in Atlanta where he was shooting another movie, and he's a lovely guy and thoughtful, and I was scared out of my mind, and luckily he said yes. And then but yeah, every record that we've done has been over Zoom.
I assume he wouldn't fit into a normal sized recording booth anyway. That would probably break the budget just building one to contain him at that point.
Yeah. I think we actually, I think I could say this, we like helped create some kind of a recording setup during COVID for him. And we've done it for lots of other actors all around the world. Some of them are more, sometimes we're just like getting someone to flip over a mattress in a closet, and we're creating little recording studios everywhere. I don't know if my microphone sounds good. I'm using the microphone that I'm supposed to use when we're recording stuff, so it sounds good because I wanted it to sound good for your guys' podcast.
Oh,
we appreciate it.
If it sounds at all good.
It does sound very, very good. But then again, we're so starstruck by you that even if it sounded like shit, we wouldn't tell you. We're Jared Stern's Jared Stern. We're too considerate of people's feelings. We don't want to cause conflict. We just want to play well with others.
So how much of the movie is done?
We're pretty close to done. The movie comes out about a year from now, May of 2022. But the bulk of it is almost done. I finished like the animation around Labor Day, and then I post-production through like Thanksgiving. So it's a scary time where, like I was saying, you're just kind of like on an animated movie, you spend years. It's a good thing and a bad thing where like you have, in a live action movie, you write the script, maybe you do a table read and you see how it goes, and you do some rewriting, and you pretty much go and you make it. If it's a comedy with improv, things can change. But for the most part, then you've got your footage and you have to edit it. And some big movies do additional photography now, reshoots. And but even still, you only have so much to play with. In animation, you write the script, record the temp voices yourselves, and then do storyboards for it. And you make a little movie and you can watch it and then see what works and what doesn't, and then rewrite and re-record and re-storyboard and then watch it again and again. And then you start getting the real actors in, and then you start animating some scenes. And so you just keep iterating and watching the movie over and over and over again, which is amazing. It's like an unlimited number of table reads.
That's cool.
But it also could drive you crazy. And then eventually you get to this scary point where I am now, where you're like, oh, no, we're just still doing it, right? We'll just do another one after. And it's like, oh no.
We'll just re-storyboard. Yeah.
Eventually you run out of time and you run out of money and you just have to finish. And so we're kind of getting close to that time.
So in this scenario, you almost do it on the inverse, which is you have the full package and then you start shopping around the voice actors to come in and start re-recording the lines over.
Yeah. I mean, different movies happen in different ways. They bring in the actors sooner or later on different ones. But yeah, you usually get to make the movie with fake voices. Some people bring in actors, like a improv actor who's just starting out, but really funny to help them. Other people just want to control it and do it themselves. It's easier that way, or they feel like they kind of know what they want. And that's how it works.
Are you gonna Shyamalan this thing? Are you gonna do a voice in the movie? Just some like random bird chirping or a dog barking?
So I had a part in the movie, which I can't say.
Okay.
When I come back on, I'll come back on when the movie's coming out and I can talk more about it. I had a pretty big part in the scratch for it. Like I did the voice myself for Crypto the Super Dog, that's now Dwayne Johnson. I knew I was never going to be Crypto the Super Dog.
Okay.
I did another voice that I also thought it's too good of a role that it would never be me. But then the studio, as we were casting people, they were like, that's really good. We like it. And just keep you in there. And I was like, wow, I'm going to get to be this character. That's pretty cool. Then I started to get a little nervous, like, oh, are people going to think like, oh, he made himself that guy? Like, right. He is. But still, it was fun. But then eventually the studio was like, well, this is kind of a big character. Maybe we shouldn't have you be it. You're really good. But... So anyway, someone awesome is gonna be that character. But like, if you're gonna get replaced by somebody, this is the kind of person where you're like, great, like that's pretty awesome.
Well, let me just say now, release the Jared Stern cut.
Yeah, exactly. I will say this: if there are tiny minor characters on there, I know a very clever way to get your name littered within this script at this point. How many times have you ever wanted your name to appear in one of your movies? Ironically, not even being your credit.
I'm going to say right now, the next movie that if I'm so lucky that I get to do, I will give some small parts to you guys just so we can break IMDb. I want them to be so confused. They'll have no idea where the credits go.
There won't be enough middle initials around.
Jared, if you insist, and I'll do it if you insist. You were talking about Dwayne Johnson being DJ. One thing that we always talk about, have you had a nickname? Like, what is the nickname for Jared Stern?
Yeah, we don't have like a really good, I'm curious, you guys know, it's like it's not a nicknameable thing.
I was saddled with Jarhead in elementary school, but that's about it.
Yeah, there was a Jarhead moment for me. I made a horrible mistake of telling people that, which I'm now going to do on podcasts for lots of people, that my parents at one point wanted to name me Moonbeam. They were hippies. And when I worked at Disney, I told that story, and then for a solid week, everyone called me Moonbeam, and then luckily they got sick of it. But
you dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
My mom practiced yelling me and my siblings' names before they named us growing up. So I was the first. So her and my dad would stand in separate rooms of the house and scream, Jared! And they were like, yeah, that screams well. Okay, we can name him Jared. But that was the only criteria.
I still love so I think I've lost my accent somewhat. I'm from Long Island originally, but my family still has pretty thick Long Island or Brooklyn accents or Queens. And so like, I still love whenever they say my name because it gets more of that in it. So Jared is how my stepsister always says it. We love Jared.
My mother is originally from Trenton, New Jersey, and she still has a little bit of that lingering around.
My mother, Philadelphia. So it's Jared, go grab me a glass of water. You know, that type of.
Yeah. And then I thought, like, could I go by, when I was, at one point where I was like, I don't like my name. Like, basically our name is like the character that it would be, if I were writing a script, it would be like played by Topher Grace, and he just took Dennis Quaid's job and is probably going to like hook up with his boss. Like, that's Jared, right? Like, so then I was like, should I go by my initials? Should I be a JP? But I don't think I could pull that off. I could be a J Paul, but then it's like, I'm going to make a robber baron.
Yeah.
No.
My girlfriend insists on calling me JR because my middle name is Ryan. And I'm like, I'm not an oil tycoon in the 20s. Like, I don't.
See, we're all having this exact same thought.
Yeah, I can't do this. Yeah, I thought about Red at one point, but I'm like, you know, Shawshank Redemption was around at that time. And I'm like, I know I bear a striking resemblance to Morgan Freeman, but like, too close, too close.
I think we just need to all embrace it now. And just like, I'm happy now that like, I was like, oh, I don't like that Jared or that Jared, but like now I know two more good Jareds. And you spell it the right way. None of those other people.
Exactly. And this is exactly what I was saying to Jared the other day, because we were like, well, now that we've found the Jared Stern, we need to find all of the other iterations of Jared Stern. And he's like, well, and even if you spell it differently, I'm like, no. Fuck those Jarrod people. You know what? They can just.
There's another Hollywood Jared who is Jared Hess, not a Jared Stern.
Oh, yes,
Jared Hess, who did Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. He's awesome. And I got the chance to work with him on something briefly that never came to fruition, but I loved it. And I flew to Salt Lake City to meet with him and work on the writing of it. And Jack Black was supposed to be the star of the movie. It was awesome. And so Jack Black thought it was so fun that I think we were like going through the contract or something for it. It said like Jared Hess and Jared Stern, and he insisted that it say Jared Black as his name on the deal. And so it never happened, but somewhere there's a deal where Jack Black's name on the contract is Jared Black, so that we would.
That's awesome. Also, please continue to name drop Hollywood actors. It'll do wonders for our numbers. We'd really appreciate it. I always found, and you're on the West Coast, right?
Yes.
Ever since I moved to the West Coast, I realized what a nightmare our name is out here, because there's a lot of like Asian and like Hispanic influence out here. And there are no hard consonants to like anchor into on the name. So it's just a lot of like soft consonants and vowels until you get to the D, and every culture pronounces half those letters differently.
Absolutely. So, I went to Panama and Nicaragua once with some friends, and after just a couple days of saying my name and realizing that everyone was just hearing it as Yeri, that became my name. And so my friends who I was on that trip with, you asked about a nickname. With them, my name is Yeri. They still call me Yeri. Yeah, and like my grandparents, when I was growing up, lived in Miami Beach, and whenever I would go down there and I would say my name, it just became Jerry. There's no such thing as Jerry to them. It's like Jerry, okay, Jerry.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a guy who was kind of hard hard of hearing call me Larry one time. That was the worst pronunciation of the name that I've heard.
Did you just go with it?
Yeah, sure. I'm Larry. Why not?
So you're doing the DC Super Pets. Do you have anything coming up on the horizon? Like after that? Like
I have a couple things that I'm producing. I'm producing a movie of the Cat in the Hat,
okay.
animated
Cool.
movie at Warner Brothers. It's in the early stages. And then I'm also producing another animated movie for Warner's called Toto that is like the story, it's like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, like the story of The Wizard of Oz, but from the point of view of Toto the dog. And it's really just an exercise in trying to drag myself crazy because I'm working on a movie about a dog named Crypto.
Yeah.
And then I have to jump into other meetings in a movie about a dog named Toto and try not to say Crypto in the Toto meeting and Toto in the Crypto meeting. But yeah, that's gonna be great. And it's directed by this guy named Alex Timbers, who's awesome. He's a huge Broadway musical director.
That's awesome.
He directed the David Byrne American Utopia musical.
That was awesome. Yes, big fan of that.
Yeah, he's great. And so it's a musical, and I'm super psyched for what he's doing with the
Toto's going to be a musical?
Yeah, musical.
That's great.
You gotta get DJ on it again. Just have him continuously play smaller and smaller dogs.
Before we wrap things up with you, I just want to make sure we get you on record saying the following. I'm Jared Stern. No, the other one, or the real one, or however you want to say it. And you're listening to Between Two Sterns.
Okay. I'm Jared. Wait, no. How do I do it? Okay. I'm Jared Stern. No, the real one. And you're listening to Between Two Sterns.
Nailed it.
Fantastic.
We also need your verbal authorization that we're allowed to use that.
Also, my social is 027.
Listen,
if this 027 also? All right.
If this identity theft is going to work, we need certain bits of information. Come on.
I feel like there's a movie here, guys. I feel like there's got to be some kind of movie about all the people with the same name finding each other in some way.
It feels like it should be Kaufman-esque, right?
Yeah.
Which is, it's somewhere between like Kaufman and like The Talented Mr. Ripley with like 3 Jared Sterns essentially rotating each other around and like all ghost writing around the same type of concept.
It's like that. It's like that movie that it was with Bette Midler and
you're thinking of Multiplicity with
no. I'm thinking of
Big Business.
Big Business. That's exactly what I'm thinking of.
Yes,
where you had like the two twin cousins or whatever, the two twin sisters who got separately, who got switched, and it's I'm explaining it badly, but it's a very funny movie, and it involves lots of hijinks.
To our circle that like follows us and pays attention to us, this is mind blowing to them because in no way did they expect us to achieve this objective, let alone this quickly. And
I'll say this: it could have been even more of an anticlimactic because you guys followed me on Twitter.
We did,
and I don't have, as you said, I'm not that. I'm like a social media voyeur. Like I'm constantly reading it and but never writing it. And then I'll think of something and I'll go, "Will that get me in trouble? My life is too good. It's not worth it." When I come up with good ideas for things that could be a tweet, I send them to one of my friends who doesn't give a shit about, like, is like fine saying stuff that could get them in trouble or wouldn't care. And
Jared, at this point, you can just pass it along and at least a Jared Stern will say it.
Exactly. I'm happy to. But so anyway, when I saw that Between Two Sterns followed me, I part of me wanted to write to you all and go, this is amazing. Obviously you found me and I'm also a Jared Stern. Maybe it would be funny for me to be on your podcast. But I didn't want to A, be presumptuous, and B, I was like, that's weird. I'm not going to do that. So anyway, I almost ruined it right off the bat. So I'm glad at least that you guys got a bunch of shows in wondering before I came. And now I think you'll have, he's a lovely man, but I think it could take a while to get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Listen,
I'm willing to plug his tequila. Just pro bono. He doesn't even need to pay us for it.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yes, exactly.
All you need to do is casually bring up this story to your friends at your high-end, socialite elite Hollywood parties that we imagine that you go to. Yeah, I mean, you have no idea how much we appreciate you doing this. It's ironic that you're pursuing us. I feel like we're in that movie where like you're the hot girl with the glasses and the ponytail who doesn't realize how attractive she is. She's like, I'm not going to say anything to him because he's over here. We're drawing your picture in the book and hearts. It's dare I say, kismet. There you go.
Absolutely. I believe that. I mean, there's many movies like that, but she's all that. But I'm
Yeah.
not all that. You guys are wonderful. I really enjoyed listening to your podcast, and
thanks.
Thank you.
and who knows? I feel like you guys are doing great stuff, and there's plenty of room for more Jared Sterns at the top. Not that I'm at the top. At the top of the middle, right where I am. Guys are-
Upper middle class.
yeah.
They say the middle class is shrinking, but there's plenty of room for Jared Stearns.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. And I have a little brother, and we're technically half brothers. And so
his name Jared Stern also?
He's not a Stern, he's a Dunn, because my stepfather is his dad. So we have different names. And he's a writer too. And it's been interesting because sometimes we'll work on something together in a little way here or there, and no one knows that we're related, which is kind of nice. It's like not nepotism at all. And
Sure.
He made it completely on his own. He was just so funny on Twitter that a writer reached out to him and was like, "You're really funny. Do you have any scripts?" And that's how he got discovered.
Well, that's the dream, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just one tweet and there you go.
It happens.
Maybe this is optimistic, and who knows what the future holds, but if there could ever be a script created one day, whether good or not, I would love to see written by Jared Stern and Jared Stern and Jared
Stern.
Just, again, breaking IMDb.
I would love that. And there's rules with the ands. Like if you have the word and between two things, then that means like the people wrote separately. But if you have an ampersand, then that means they were a writing team. So I think we should confuse it even more. It should be Jared Stern and then the word and then Jared Stern, ampersand Jared Stern. Team. Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
So before you go, final thoughts. As the best Stern, as the most successful of the three, do you have any final advice for Jared Stearns trying to make it in this industry as a Jared Stern?
Well, it's interesting. I still reject the best Stern label, and
your humility makes you more like us than you could possibly know.
Yeah, there is a tradition of self-deprecation among Jared Stearns that you're really keying in on.
I don't trust people who aren't self-deprecating. Anyone who's like confident scares the hell out of me. I'm like, wait, something's wrong there. And just the story that you were telling earlier, Jared, about the agent who mistakenly called you and then was like kind of in a rush to get off the phone.
Yeah.
That's pretty much every call that I have in Hollywood still. It doesn't really get any, it's always just scary and a mess for a million different reasons. And look, I've gotten creature comforts and nice things from success, and I got to work with really funny, talented people. That is always wonderful. But it's honestly the thing that I, at least my therapist keeps on telling me is like, you have to, especially when you work on an animated movie for 4 or 5 years, it's like, you have to just find ways to be happy with what you're doing, with the day-to-day thing, with solving one little puzzle, cracking like, oh, I came up with the perfect way to call back that joke at the end of my set.
Yeah.
Or I just had the funniest, weirdest experience on stage where this guy was like, like one of the times that I did stand up, David Faustino, who played Bud Bundy, but there were like 3 people in the audience and they were all sitting way in the back and then him sitting in the front row. And it was like, I was just performing for him and it was so strange. And then he was like talking to me. He was like, I like that. That's funny. And I was like, thank you, David Faustino. It's like the little weirdnesses of life and just the things that you can find to love within what you're doing is what kind of makes it. So that if I could give any advice, it would be that it never really changes, and to just kind of every now and then celebrate those little joys and victories, whatever size they are.
Couldn't have asked for a better outro. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, not the only,
but certainly the best Stern.
Yeah.
Jared Stern.
Cannot thank you enough for coming on. You're welcome back anytime. And if it's all the same with you, I'm just going to stop the recording just so we can guys have an honest.
Yeah, that would be great.
The pressure of the recording. First of all, we stopped recording after we said goodbye to Jared, and then we talked to him for another 45 minutes, maybe half an hour, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you will note that I'm wearing a different shirt. No, he did not tell me to take my shirt off and change my shirt. It was just really hot, so I changed my shirt. But sometimes when you do an interview with somebody on camera or when you're being recorded, they present as a different person than they actually are, and just such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Just such a great guy. Really, I said it to him while we were on the break. I'll say it again. it's rare to meet people who not only match but exceed your best expectations for them. And that's something I can honestly say about Jared. Really great guy.
He was a mensch.
A mensch. He was a mensch.
What I was going to say was, it's kind of too bad part of that last bit of conversation was not on the record.
Yeah.
Because that was, I mean, first of all, how fucking cool was that? That was again, above and beyond.
This was better than I could have possibly imagined. And, you know, kudos to you for having that friend of yours who you went to college with
Yeah.
to connect to.
Thanks a lot for having that that acquaintance. You know what? You really went above and beyond on that, on knowing somebody.
The one thing I regret doing is I wish we should have taken an opportunity to see if he could have said Between Two Sterns at the same time with one of us to see if it's us throwing it off. But
you're right. Trying to get three people to coordinate on that. I think that would have been. I think we would have broken Zoom.
Well, it's easier to beat a horse to death with three people, and that's what.
With all the kicking, you just keep kicking.
I know we're working on a new outro for season 2, but for the remainder of the season, we're going to stick with it.
Okay.
Thank you for sticking with us for 21 episodes. We hope that if you've gone through the journey with us, you have enjoyed meeting the writer, the director, Jared Stern, as much as we have. And we'll see you.
And thank you for tolerating the other two Jared Sterns.
That's right. The
complete Shlomil, Shlomazel, you know.
But we'll see you next week as a nice little season 1 finale. And we look forward to talking to you more right here on Between Two Sterns. You fucked that one up on purpose.
I did not. On my screen, we were right on.
Really?
Yes.
Well, when we edit the audio, it will be on, at least for the remainder of this season.
Yeah. Well, sure.
All right.
All right. Well, holy shit.
That's
cool.
We did it. We're done. We did it. Quitting everything, time for retirement. Night, buddy.